Um, the first thing I want to say is these are my opinions based on my knowledge in my homestead. What I wanted to talk about was Pure Living for Life got a lot of bad comments on their playing at homesteading. I'll be honest, I saw the comments. I have not seen the video. I can't find it. I think they may have just taken it down. But it got me to thinking about what we actually see on YouTube. And although there are great channels out there that do show, the real deal, there are some that just glamour over everything. So I thought it was important to do a video on the truth behind homesteading. A lot of it doesn't get talked about. You see them with the animals, and you see them, with their gardens and everything, but you don't see the behind the scenes stuff. So, oh, I got a kitty. You probably can't see her. She's one of our little feral cats that was sick that we're taking care of. Anyway, I know, squirrel. I'll get back on track. They don't tell you a lot of what goes into a homestead, so I thought I would share that with you. And one of those things is, you see a lot of people talk about get land for very little money or free land, stuff like that. And I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying it's only for a very lucky few. We pay mortgage. And everybody I know pays a mortgage. I honestly don't know of anybody that got, including YouTube channels, where they got their land for cheap or free. There are some cases where you can look into somebody who will let you make payments on a land. But be realistic. You're going to be looking at a mortgage, most people. The other thing is they don't talk about the startup cost. Starting a homestead is really expensive. You've got your sheds, your housing, you've got your fencing, you've got the feed, and all that adds up. I mean, for our shed that we have out here, I keep looking out there because that's where the shed is, it cost us $500 to make it ourselves. And then the fencing, cattle panels, $40 a piece. We needed 10 of them. That's $400. That's not counting the post and everything else. So you've got to look into what your startup fee is. Because when you go out and you see these people and they're petting their animals and loving on their animals, and you see that fence, they're not telling you what it costs them to put that fence up. Unless you look into an area that has fencing. And make sure the fencing stays. Ours had fencing when we bought the house. When we actually moved into the house, he had taken it all down. So we had to replace it all, which ran into quite a bit of money. Yes, baby. I don't know if you're on camera or not, but you're a cute little thing. The other thing you don't see him talk about is vet bills. Vet bills can get expensive, especially with larger animals. So you have to take into factor that you're going to have vet bills. You see them on YouTube, oh, I took my animal to the vet, but they don't tell you what those vet bills actually cost. And they can get really expensive. The last vet bill we had was $400. And a lot of vets want their money right when you take the animal in. I know ours does. The other thing that they don't really tell you about is if you're a person that likes to travel, that part of your life is pretty much over unless you have somebody, that can watch your animals. I'm lucky I have a neighbor that can watch them once in a while. But they need feed, they need water, their housing needs cleaned. They're a lot of responsibility, and you just can't go off and leave them. So you're going to be tied down to your homestead quite a bit once you bring animals in. Not to mention your gardening is going to need water, it's going to need weeding. There's a lot there that keeps you on the homestead. So if you're a person that likes to go out and do weekend trips and stuff like that, you might want to rethink having animals. I mean, a cat, you can clean kitty box, food, and water, and they're good to go. Goats, you have to be there in the morning to feed them. You have to be there in the evening to feed them. You have to be there to milk them. You have to be there to put them up at night. Because I know my goats, they wait for me at the gate till I'm there to put them up at night. So I have to be home at dark or a little bit after to make sure they get put up. These are just things you have to think about when having a homestead that they don't necessarily tell you about. One of the other things is births. You have an animal give birth, you have to be there. You have to have some knowledge of what to do to help that animal. And this is one thing I'm going to stress really, really a lot in the video is knowledge. Please get a lot of knowledge behind your belt. Not saying you're not going to make mistakes. Believe me, we've made plenty. But you really need to look at knowledge, because when that goat goes into having birth, you've got to be there, because a lot of times, at least in my experience, goats have problems. You're going to have to be there, you know, like one time my goat Mocha, her daughter, who's Jan's goat now, had problem in birth. We had to stick our hands, I would say we, she, up into the goat and pull the baby out. I was there the whole time, had to pull the baby out, and the little boy was dead. Another time, one of the goats, I think it was Sunny, couldn't get the baby out. Could not get the baby out. And we called the vet, and she got the baby out, but it died. And then, of course, there's the vet bill for that. Have a vet that can come out on emergencies. You really want, when you get to invest in these animals, to make sure that, you know, you can take care of them. Feed is another issue. Feed can get expensive depending on where you're at. My friend Heidi lives in California. She pays $17 a bale for her alfalfa for her goats. That's a lot of money. And she has 20-some goats. She has registered Nigerians, there's show goats and the milk goats, and she does sell them. But feed is still expensive for her. And even she says sometimes it puts her, in the red. Yes, I know this one really wants attention. Which brings me to another point. You're mama to these animals. They're going to depend on you for everything. You have to be willing to make that commitment to the work it takes to take care of animals. You've got to be committed to the money it costs to build the sheds, to build, to do the fencing. Make sure you're aware of all this before you go in, because a lot of this, as I say, the dark side, you don't see. Can you handle when an animal dies? Because you're going to have animals die on you. Can you kill an animal? A lot of people get in and they get meat birds, and they get into doing the meat birds, and then when it comes time to process them, they find they can't handle it. They get too attached to animals. Can you distance yourself from an animal that's a meat bird? Like I'm attached to my goats, I'm attached to my cats, I'm attached to my laying hens. Meat birds, I don't get attached to, because that's food for us. So you have to ask yourself, can I not attach myself to these animals? Because that's going to play a big factor on you. So, there's several things you got to look at. Money. It is expensive to start a homestead. Even with your garden. When you go to do your garden, you got a can. Well, there's the expense of the jars. Jars, depending where you're at, can run $9 to $11, depending on size. There's 12 in a box and where you're at. Then you've got the canner to think about. A good canner can run you $200 to $300. Same way with the dehydrator. I have an Excalibur. I spent about $400 for my Excalibur. To me, it was worth it. To you, it may not be. The other thing, time. Travel. You're not going to be able to travel if you're a person that likes to travel a lot. It's just not going to happen. You also have, getting up early. I get up in the winter at 7:30, let my animals out when it's light. In the summer, I'm up at 6 a.m. because they want to come out when it's light. So I'm up, giving them food, giving them water, and putting them out, and letting them out of their things, because I have them in for closure, for protection, for predators, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, that you have to look out for. So, and your time in your garden. I know I can go out and weed And I'm out there from 10 o'clock till 3 in the afternoon because the garden's got to be weeded. It's got to be watered. You've got to, bring in your fruit. There's bugs you got to deal with. Believe me, this year I really found out about that. You have bugs. You may have bugs to contend with. You may have sick animals to contend with. These are things that's going to take a lot of your time. Canning. You see a video and you see about 15 minutes of them canning. What you don't see is that they may be up, like me, till midnight, 1 in the morning, finish their canning. When canning season hits, you're canning all day and into the night because you've got to get that stuff stored. Now, don't get me wrong, I love going downstairs and seeing, my canned goods. But there is an expense and there is work involved. And there's knowledge. Make sure you're knowledgeable and do your research because you don't want to make your family sick. Check out a number of different videos. Go to the library, get a book. That's something we don't think about a lot. Grab some really good books with a lot of knowledge before you get into this. Come into this fully loaded. Don't come in, halfway. Another thing that I see homesteaders do that is a mistake is they want to go really, really cheap. Well, really, really cheap is going to cost you money in the long run because, like I see people and they use pallets for their goat shed. And I saw they did pallets and then they did straw around the outside, which is a great idea to help keep your animals warm, for the shed. For temporary, I wouldn't recommend it as a good long-term thing. 1, straw breaks down. 2, you get infested with rodents. Rodents love to hide in straw, so you're looking at, more rodents on your homestead. Same with bugs. Some bugs like to be cool, so in the summer you're bringing in some bugs. But for a temporary shelter, it works great. But, like I said, straw breaks down, so you're going to constantly replacing it. Okay, say it's $5 a bale for straw, and it took 10 bales of straw. Okay, well, there's, $5 for a bale? There's $50. You think that's not a lot of money. But you keep replacing this, and that adds up. Where if you take the time and do it right the first time and do a good shed, you're done. That shed will last you 10, 15, hopefully 20 years. And like I say, do it right the first time. So when you see these videos, I got a really cheap, quick way to do this, understand that in a couple years, they're going to be facing that problem or that issue. Same way with fencing. Our fencing for our goats and our chickens ran us, like I said, $400. We needed 10 at $48 a pop. That's not counting the post, but we already had those from other homestead. So I didn't have to count that in the T-post. I didn't have to count that in the expense. You may have to. But, like I said, do it right the first time. It's actually going to save you money. You get that cheap wire. Animals pull on fencing. They will push fencing. Goats, even my chickens will try to dig under. They're basically making a little bed to keep, to keep warm or keep cool. Pigs will definitely push on if you're looking at having pigs. So you really, really need a sturdy fence or you're going to run into problems. The other thing you're looking at is, as far as expense goes, the vet bills, goats need deworming, chickens need deworming. I give my chickens pumpkin seeds. My goats will not eat them. They absolutely refuse. So I have to buy worming medicine for them. There's vitamins. There's minerals that they need. To supplement my goats for copper, I give them, and for minerals their body needs, I give them sunflower seeds. I give them alfalfa pellets in the winter. When they're milking or they're pregnant, you give them oats. That's on top of their regular feed. And animals will waste feed. We pay $6 a bale for food for our goats. They maybe eat 4 of it, and 2 of it gets wasted on the ground. Because I am constantly having to rake up, food from around their house and stuff that they've pushed off. Also, you got to look at the straw you're buying to go inside the house. Another thing I brought up at the time, you have to clean their housing. Are you willing to go out there and clean poop? Are you willing to go out there and, clean the yard that they're in? Because you have to rake it. You've got to clean it up. You don't want pesticides in their area. So I'm once a week cleaning out my goat's shed, and once a week cleaning out my chicken coop. For right now, we're getting goats this spring. That will add on to my list. So you also have to look at the work that's going to go into it. And I got me a cheat sheet here, guys. I talked about the land, finance and cost. Feed, make sure you get the right feed for your animal. A lot of people talk about, well, I let mine graze in the pasture and this and that, which is fine. But for me, I have Nigerian milk goats. And they give really, really good milk. But that milk depends on what they eat. Mine won't eat weeds. They are totally spoiled. But you get a goat that's eating weeds all the time, that milk's not going to taste that good. So you have to keep that in a factor. You can let chickens free range out, in a pasture. That works. But then too, you got to look at, are they getting enough calcium? You may have to buy oyster shells, and you're going to need to buy. I believe in buying feed, even if I pasture my chickens, because I want to make sure they have all the nutrients and proteins they need. A lot of people may disagree with me on that one and say, oh, they don't need it. My personal experience for where I live, I find that they do. Let me think. Sorry, guys. I thought I had it all figured out, and I don't. Told you about you're going to have early hours, getting up in the morning, letting them out and stuff. The other thing you have to look at is during birthing season. You're going to be out there 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning because you're going to have to make sure they have healthy births. Brings us back to knowledge. You're going to have to know when to tell they're about ready to give birth. A lot of my friends have cameras that they invested in so they can see when the animal's about to go in birth, and I've done it too. You sleep for like an hour or so, or 2 hours, and you get up, you check the camera. You go back to bed, you sleep, you get up, you check. These animals really will take a lot of your attention. I'm not trying to discourage you from homesteading. I just want to give you some of the facts you don't always see on TV. Like the canning. Canning's a lot of work. My kitchen's a disaster for 2 months during canning season. Because you've got to get that crop in. You can't wait. It's got to get done. So those 2 months, I know, okay, Michelle, don't put anything on your schedule because you know this is coming in season, that's coming in season. And you have to be prepared. The other thing they don't really talk about, which you really need to think about when doing a garden, is in the land fact, yes, I know I'm bouncing around the place, on the land is, check out your land. Check out your zoning rights. Check out your water rights. And one of the things we did when we moved here, our first winter, I left my animals with my friend Jan. Well, I gave my chickens away to Debbie, so I had to do new chickens. But I left my goats with my friend Jan, simply because, one, we didn't have fencing up yet, or a shelter. Sorry, excuse me. And two, I really needed to see what the winters were like. And I'm so glad I did, because we flooded, which to me was a blessing because I got to see exactly what areas flooded and what areas didn't. And it turned out to definitely be a blessing because where I planned to put my goats, it flooded. So they're now in a no flood area. But to be safe, we put our shed for our goats on stone bricks. So it's about this high up off the ground. So if there is any flooding or snow or anything like that, it's not going to destroy our goat shed. Our goats aren't going to get wet when they're laying down. Because if you put them on the ground, that water and everything's going to go in and they're going to be constant water. And then, we have to look out for root rot. Or not root rot, I'm sorry, hoof rot. Another thing with goats, you're going to have to learn how to trim hooves, because my goats' hooves need trimmed every month. You're going to have to learn how to build like a stand, because they need milk stands. I'm just trying to go through some of the things that you don't always see. Weather patterns. That's one of the things we had to check. We had to see which way the wind blew because it gets cold here. I'm in Utah, and it does get cold. So we built our shed where the wind is hitting the back of the shed and not the front of the shed because you want to keep them cold, or excuse me, you want to keep them warm. You don't want them, to get sick. So check out your weather patterns after you buy your land for homesteading before you bring your animals in. This will give you a clue, before you do anything. It'll give you an idea of, okay, how much wind do I get? Where do I have the shade? Pigs like shade. Do I have shade for my pigs? Is this area going to flood? You get the idea of what you're looking for. Another thing you got to look at is fatigue. Willow Creek Homestead did a great one where he said, I'm not complaining, I'm just overwhelmed. Don't put the cart before the horse, because everything's going to take energy, everything's going to take money, everything's going to take time and knowledge, which I'll probably bring up more here later on. Do a little bit at a time so you don't get overwhelmed. I think that's where a lot of people run into problems, and they don't show this, is you do get overwhelmed. There's days I get overwhelmed. Believe me, I pray for canning season to have these, all my food canned, have all this great food out of my garden. I mean, I'm so looking forward to canning season. But I'll be honest with you, by the end of canning season, I'm like, oh, please don't produce no more food. I'm tired. I don't want to can anymore. I don't want to dehydrate anymore. I'm done. I'm tired. I do that every year. I look forward to it, and then by the end of it, I'm like, please get this over with. I'm giving food away to my neighbors because I am just so tired, and I'm tired of canning. You're going to hit that. You're going to miss out on things because you've got to stay home and take care of goats, or, you've got a sick animal. You have to be there for them. These are things, and a sick animal will definitely overwhelm you. During birthing season, you're going to be constantly exhausted because you're going to be checking on that animal, making sure that animal is okay. There's a great joy when that baby comes out. It's fantastic. But during birthing season, oh my gosh, you're going to be tired. And things are going to get overwhelmed. And sick. Sorry, my nose itches. Don't even think about that. When you're sick, your butt's still out there. Those animals don't care if you're sick. That garden that needs weeded don't care if you're sick. It takes a very strong-willed, hard-working person to have a homestead. It's not like you see all these, which you see with me. I will post it again this year. Beautiful pictures of my garden. But what I don't always post is fighting zucchini borers. Or, I've got an outdoor cat, making sure I don't have mice. Fighting other bugs. You don't always see that. And if you do, you see about 5 minutes. You don't see it. It's a constant fight. Just like weeding. You may see somebody out there weeding. You see 10, 15 minutes. But that person's been out there all day doing that weeding. These are things you have to look at when, you're thinking about homesteading. They're just truths that go with it. Let's see. I got a cheat sheet. Fights. Sometimes you're going to get animals that fight. You're going to get roosters that fight each other. Quite often, you will get roosters that fight each other over ladies. You will get chickens that pluck other chickens' feathers. Which, by the way, get rid of that chicken that's doing it because they won't stop. And you really don't want that, because once the chicken starts bleeding, the others will attack it. And you're teaching that, by leaving that chicken there, it's teaching the other chickens to do it. We rescued a bird that was literally bald. Lucky it wasn't dead, because chickens will kill each other because they had just viciously attacked the chicken. We also had 2 chickens we took that were real bloody because for some reason the other chickens wanted to kill them. They were new to the roost. That's another thing you got to learn. The person that did this put them in at daylight. So the other chickens attacked them because they didn't think they were there. People that have homestead for one-eyed chickens know if you introduce new chickens, do it at night when they're asleep. You got a much better chance them accept them that way, because they just wake up and go, oh, they're here. Never bring them in during the day. You're really going to have problems. I have a goat Bailey. Every once in a while, I don't know if it's goat PMS or what, but she wants to fight her sister. So I separate them. And then she's okay, and it may be 4 or 5 months, and then she gets a bug up her butt, and we're at it again. These are things you have to look at. Not saying all animals fight. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you have to look at that as a factor. Oh my gosh, my nose. Let me think. I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, this is an unedited video, and I'm just trying to get everything into it that I think you need to know. Don't follow everything you see on YouTube. There are good channels, and there's some that I'm like, oh, don't put that on. That's not right, you know. And realize that what works for one person may not work for you. It depends on your climate and where you're at. We lived here about 1.5 years. Our first summer here, I had a lot of crop failure. But I was dealing with bugs that I've never had to deal with before. I was dealing with new soil. I was dealing with plants that worked in California that don't work here, or plants that didn't work for California that work here. You have to take all that into consideration. And don't get frustrated if you fail. Please don't do that. Just pick yourself up and go again, because all of us fail. Even people like us have had homesteads for a long time. And remember, your animals are going to become your babies. I mean, when I went and got my goats, that was an expense to go all the way back to California to pick my goats up to bring them here. But they're my babies. It was worth it to me. There's a lot of good things to homesteading. I don't want, to get you bummed out about this. I just want to be realistic. I love, getting a cup of coffee in the morning, and after I let my goats up, and I'm watching the sun come up and watch them play in their little, enclosure, listen to my chickens. I love stuff like that. I love going downstairs and looking at my pantry and seeing all this stuff that I produced myself. I love that. But I'm also realistic. A lot of work went into that. A lot of work. So you have to evaluate the type of person you are. Are you willing to work hard? Because you're going to be working hard. It is hard work. The other thing I wanted to talk about was people talk about making money off the homestead. Some people do. A lot of people don't. Like where I'm at, I have chickens. They'd say, sell your eggs. Well, I'm out in the country. Everybody around me's got eggs. And they're selling them in town. And they pretty much have the market on it. So selling eggs is out of the question for me. Pigs. You can go in with somebody on a pig and they split the cost with you. But that's about all you can do in my area. Because sorry guys, apparently my camera was full, so it died on me. So I'm going to have to remember where I was at. I had to erase some videos so I'd have enough room on the SIM card to finish this. I was talking about the pigs. Where I'm at, you can't raise a pig and sell it. You just can't do it. So, you can go in with somebody and help, with the food and everything, and you split everything. But you can't make a profit off of it. It's just not allowed here. Someplace else may be different. These are things you got to look into. Look into your zoning. Make sure you have water rights. Make sure what animals you can have. Because every place is different as to what you can and can't have. I've done several videos, excuse me, where they bought land. Oh, got another kitty. Where they bought land and found out they couldn't have a homestead there because of the zoning laws. A neighbor complained and they came out and said, sorry, you can't have chickens, or, you can't have this type of building or shed in your backyard. You may need a permit. I mean, there's a lot of things you have to look at. The other thing is predators. I've seen several videos where they've lost animals because of predators. When we looked into this land, we were told there aren't any predators. But to be safe, because, you know, there can always be stray dogs, we built our structure to protect our animals from predators. That's another reason for doing it right the first time, is because there's always a chance of predators, and in some places, there's going to be predators. You're going to know it ahead of time. My friend Heidi, she did and didn't know. She knew she'd go to the mountains, so she knew she might have mountain lion problems, that she would have some predators. What she didn't count on and didn't know till after they moved in was rattlesnakes. She kills 4 to 5 rattlesnakes a year. One of her goats died being bit by a rattlesnake. So predators are definitely something else you're going to have to be knowledgeable of. And you're going to have to take that into account. Weather. Are you willing to go out into degree weather, depending on where you're at? I'm where it's cold. In the mornings, it can be 9 degrees in the winter. Are you willing to bundle up and go out and be out half an hour to an hour taking care of animals in the freezing cold? You know, you have to look at all these factors. Hello, Cleo. Excuse me, baby. I'm going to get my book, guys. Since I took a little bit to get rid of the other videos, I kind of lost to where I'm at. I talked about the land. I talked about, you know, the cost. And what are you doing? Hey, don't do that. Man, okay. That was out of the blue. I talked about, you know, vet bills. You're going to have vet bills. I talked about being tied to your homestead, about animals needing you, going out in the weather. It's hot. You have to be out there. It's cold. You have to be out there. Let me think. I talked about animals fighting. I talked about, you know, canning, the time, the energy that it takes. You know, the ability, can you kill something? Do you have it in you to take an animal's life, to produce your own food? You know, I don't know if in the video I did this or I'm repeating myself, but like food, it costs you more to have a homestead than if you went out and bought it. Chickens, I looked up real quick what it is this year for hatchery, and it's $2.88 a bird. And then you put feed on top of that, and if you don't process it yourself, you have that. For me, it ends up being $1 to $2 more a bird, which to me it's worth it because I know what the birds eat, I know it's taken care of, and the meat's better. Same with the pig. For a baby pig, it's $88 for a baby. On top of that, you've got all the feed, then you got the processing fee. So it ends up costing me more for a pig than what it would if I just went to the store and bought it. But to me, it is worth it. It is so worth it. And so you have to look at those things. Your water bill from your garden. You're going to have crops that work. You're going to have crops that you just wasted a bunch of water and money on because they didn't work out. Then, of course, the expense for the canner and the jars. These are things you have to look at. Knowledge. Please, 2 things, if you don't take anything else from this video, is 1, start small so you know your capability. Start small so you'll know for sure how much you want to bring on the homestead. And the other thing, knowledge. Please, arm yourself with knowledge before you do this. Otherwise, you're going to be sadly disappointed. And more importantly, don't believe everything you see on YouTube. You know, if you have neighbors that have goats, go to them. They raised them. They can tell you what affects the environment you live in, what diseases you have to look for that might be in the area. I mean, that's your best knowledge there. Books are another thing. Books are great for knowledge. You know, don't just rely. I'm not saying you can't get a lot of good stuff on YouTube. Please don't think that you can. But be particular about what you follow and what you believe. I mean, you know, You don't want to go into this and waste a lot of time, money, and effort because you didn't have the knowledge. The other thing is, do it right the first time. If you do it really, really cheap, it's not going to stand up. You're putting your animals in danger, especially if you don't have the right fencing. You know, you go with cheap fencing or low fencing, predators you have to look at. Just, guys, go into it realistically. Not the glamour you see on there, like, oh, I would love to do that. That looks like fun, and go whole hog and realize, it ain't what you thought it was. Go into it realistically. I guess that's all. Hopefully I covered everything. Hope I didn't bore you too much. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Bye.